This is the U.S. Report with James Morrow.
Good evening and welcome to the program. Coming up tonight, Joe Biden remains in his perpetual state of confusion during D-Day commemorations in France. The Hunter Biden gun trial kicks off, and boy, does it spell trouble for him. Plus, a pro-Palestinian Stanford student adopts a very extreme method of protesting. We'll have a look at that. But first, you know what words I am frankly getting sick of hearing? Misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theory. Why? Well, because these are weasel words, censorship words, used by people in authority every day to shut folks up and stop them from discovering the truth. The truth about things that are hiding, quite obviously, in plain sight. Not crazy things like the Earth is flat or the moon landing was fake, but things that everybody knows, yet nobody is allowed to say. Well, this week, there was a bit of a vindication for the so-called conspiracy theorists out there. First, there was the incredible revelation, confirmation, that the Hunter Biden laptop, you know, the one with all the drug deals and hookers and dodgy dealings and emails about 10% for the big guy, was in fact the real thing. Now, you knew it was real and I knew it was real, and now its veracity has finally been confirmed. On Tuesday, federal prosecutors entered the laptop, aka the laptop from hell, into evidence in their case against Hunter Biden over charges that he illegally owned a gun while he was addicted to crack. An FBI agent even confirmed that this was the real thing on the stand. Now, why is this amazing? Well, it's pretty amazing because given the way for nearly 4 years that we've known about its existence, the U.S. government and its proxies have been telling us all the laptop was a fake, a hoax, Russian disinformation designed to throw the 2020 election with a conspiracy theory. Remember the spies who lie? The 51 intelligence so-called experts who put their names to a letter in October 2020, just before that, weeks before that election, and likely at the behest of a future Biden Secretary of State Anthony Blinken? Remember how the FBI and the White House got social media companies like Facebook, now Meta, to suppress the story of the laptop so it wouldn't hurt Biden's chances of defeating Trump? Twitter, before it was owned by Elon Musk and called X, even locked the New York Post's Twitter account for tweeting about their story and their exclusive scoop about the laptop. Pretty funny stuff because, again, these are the people who are always warning about threats to democracy and misinformation in elections, by the way. And remember also how the media, much of the media, shamelessly participated in going along with labeling the laptop a conspiracy theory, and using intelligence sources gave cover to those who wanted to shut down the debate.
It's a story raising concerns about whether it's real or just designed to sow confusion in the final weeks of the election.
Experts say it has all the hallmarks of information laundering.
This looks like your classic disinformation campaign.
For a long time, Giuliani has been openly working to dig up dirt and promote disinformation on the Bidens. And now, the Washington Post is also reporting that the intelligence community was so concerned that the Russians were using Giuliani to feed Russian disinformation to the president that they warned the White House about it last year.
I think there are a lot of issues related to this New York Post story that reportedly referenced the Hunter Biden emails. And as I and several of my former colleagues have pointed out publicly, that it does bear the hallmarks of Russian disinformation.
And there it is in the Oval Office, another wonderful propaganda coup for Vladimir Putin, seeing the President of the United States holding up a newspaper promoting Kremlin propaganda.
And CBS's Leslie Stahl even tried to stop Donald Trump from talking about the laptop in an interview, saying it was not a scandal. in the lead up to that fateful 2020 election.
Watch him walk out of a store, and he's walking with ice cream. And the question the media asks him, what kind of ice cream, what flavor ice cream do you have? And he's in the midst of a scandal.
He's not.
And he's taking... Of course he is,
no.
Leslie.
Come on.
Of course he is.
I reckon Leslie Stahl owes Trump a bit of an apology there because, of course, we know, in fact, it was the real deal. All that stuff about the laptop being Russian disinformation, well, that turned out to be the real disinformation, spread by intelligence types and a complacent media that didn't want to see Donald Trump win a second term in 2020. Again, the Hunter laptop conspiracy theory. Well, it turned out to be true. And guess what? Other so-called conspiracy theories that have loomed large over American politics the past several years have also been confirmed. This week, a bunch of ideas that seemed pretty patently obvious about COVID, yet were called conspiracy theories, also finally won some much-needed confirmation. Like, for example, the idea that the coronavirus pandemic, either by accident or on purpose, slipped out of a Wuhan lab notorious for doing experiments to, guess what, make coronaviruses more powerful. And again, once upon a time, suggesting anything other than the official line, which was the official Chinese line, that the virus emerged spontaneously from one of China's notorious wet markets, was again enough to get you called a kook and called him a conspiracy theorist. Yet this week, the New York Times, which did so much to spread the idea that the lab leak theory was just a kooky Trump talking point, published a massive, detailed essay by an MIT and Harvard molecular biologist saying that, yes, the pandemic probably started in a lab. That biologist went into all sorts of really interesting detail, and you can look that up later if you like, but it basically adds to an increasing weight, a preponderance of evidence. And again, it looks like we have another conspiracy theory confirmed. So all of this got me thinking, what are some other conspiracy theories out there? Well, believe it or not, one of them is the notion that Joe Biden is not physically or mentally as sharp as it used to be and just maybe isn't up to the job. According to some people on the left and in the media, that whole idea is a lie. Yes, I know, they say it's just misinformation, Trumpian conspiracy stuff. Here's top Biden campaign spokesman Adrian Elrod assuring us that, in fact, when it comes to the president, everything is fine.
I can tell you that he is sharper than ever. His record is very strong. He's achieved more as president than at least the past 4 to 5 presidents before him.
So strong, so vigorous. Move along, nothing to see here. Yet the notion that Biden's mental and physical frailty is just the product of fevered Trumpian brains, a conspiracy theory or misinformation, if you will, well, that's beginning to look as unsupportable as those other claims of conspiracy around the Hunter laptop or the origins of the pandemic. This week, Time magazine, a once great and venerable publication, ran an exclusive interview with Biden titled, "If He Wins." Now, it didn't go so well. In the interview, Biden confused Chinese President Xi with Russian President Putin. He said there would be 1 billion people living in Africa soon, even though the continent is already home to 1.4 billion people. And also, Biden talked about fixing deforestation in the Amazon rainforest by installing solar infrastructure in the African country of Angola. Now, I'm going to talk later in the show about this, but the Wall Street Journal also this week published a massive expose based on interviews with more than 45 people that opened by saying, quote, "When President Biden met with congressional leaders in the West Wing in January to negotiate a Ukraine funding deal, he spoke so softly at times that some participants struggled to hear him," according to 5 people familiar with the meeting. He also read from notes to make obvious points, paused for extended periods and sometimes closed his eyes for so long that some in the room wondered whether he had tuned out, unquote. And then the piece told story after story detailing very similar behavior in similar high-stakes events. And there was also the news this week, and this was before the president's performance at the D-Day commemorations, which we will talk about later, that the Justice Department had blocked release of the audio tapes of Joe Biden's interviews with classified documents special counsel Robert Hur. Remember, this was the interview where the transcripts revealed that Biden was suffering from all sorts of memory glitches, so many that Hur decided that the president would not be able to be prosecuted. It was the interview where Biden, you'll remember, couldn't remember what year his son had died and claimed that he had been vice president during the pandemic. Well, the Department of Justice said they're going to keep the tapes under lock and key. Some reports have it they are even being stored in a secure, compartmentalized information facility because they fear, this is what they say, they fear the audio could be used to make AI deep fakes. Sure, okay, fine. But I think maybe the real answer is that the tapes are worse than we know and are worse than the transcripts. It might also reveal that the White House doctored those transcripts. But hey, that and the idea that Joe Biden is not physically or mentally up to the job, well, again, I'm sure it's all just a conspiracy theory, right? But you also know what I say. These days, today's conspiracy theories are tomorrow's coming attractions. Well, joining me now to discuss all this and more is former White House Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, great to have you with us on the program this week. So much to talk about. More and more people in the media are finally beginning to talk about Biden and his physical decline and all the things that keep happening on the world stage. Now, a little bit later in the program, I'm going to show more of what happened at the D-Day commemorations. But Mick Mulvaney, when you see things like the president's odd behavior at massively important events, like the 80th anniversary of D-Day, including appearing to fall asleep, being confused about where he was going when he got out of his car, and a lot of other stuff, what does this tell you about, A, his ability to get through the next debate, but also what other world leaders are thinking about who's at the helm of the U.S.?
Yeah, James, that second point is especially important now here on the as we go into the weekend of the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasions. Keep in mind, the day that Joe Biden left for France, the Wall Street Journal, a very prominent newspaper here in the United States, ran a front page story about what happens behind closed doors with Joe Biden. And it was a scathing attack on his capacity, on his ability to essentially do the job. And the Democrats came out absolutely howling about it and trotted out all sorts of comments from other world leaders saying how capable that Joe Biden was. It sort of provide a balance to this Wall Street Journal accusation. And then you see what you saw today at Normandy, which was stunning, on the stage with Macron, and clearly just not in the right mind to be president of the United States. So it's going to be a bigger issue as we move to the debates. Keep in mind, we're less than a month away now from the first debate. And I fully expect Joe Biden to be capable that evening because there's ways to manage his capacity on short terms. There's drugs you can use, et cetera. Maybe we'll talk about that before we get to the debate. But all eyes of the world, not just of the U.S., will be on Joe Biden, not only just at the debate here at the end of this month, but from now until the next election, because the man is clearly slipping. There's evidence of it almost every single day.
Well, Mick, I mean, you've been chief of staff to Donald Trump. You know what it's like inside a White House. You know how a president will be, in public versus in private. But where is this great, with it, hyper-competent, doing quadratic equations in his head, Joe Biden, that they say, behind closed doors, he's sharp as a tack? Why don't we see this out on screen?
Yeah, because that Joe Biden never existed. Look, he's not always been, 120 years old. He has been younger and been more capable, there's no question, but no one ever accused Joe Biden of doing quadratic equations. I mean, no one, he was able to find the door by himself to get out of a room. At this point, we're not really sure that's by himself. But no, Joe Biden, I think another senator years ago described him as one of the most famously stupid members of the Senate. And I think that was another Democrat who said that. So no, listen, you don't have to be a genius to be the president of the United States. There's no question about that, but you have to be there. You have to be on the job. You have to be competent to do it. And I think the things like what we saw today on the stage at Normandy are going to continue to raise the questions as to whether or not Joe Biden can do the job. Look, this is how it boils down, and this is how I explain it to people in this country. See if this resonates. Since y'all speak English most of the time as well, it comes down to the 4 I's. The 2024 election for Joe Biden is the 4 I's. It's inflation, immigration, Israel, and incapacity. He's going to have to figure out a way to deal with all 4 of those things if he's going to expect to be reelected.
Well, yeah, I think that's right. And also, I think if my old high school math teacher is watching, he'd be saying, I'm not accusing you of doing quadratic equations either. But we'll put that aside here. And on those 4 I's, it would seem that's part of the reason why Donald Trump's polls seem to be continuing to go well, despite that hush money nonsense verdict, which I think most people have dismissed. But we're seeing some really interesting stuff here. In Georgia, a Quinnipiac poll has Trump up 49 to 44. In Michigan, 48 to 47. That's quite close. But even Virginia, which was not supposed to be a battleground state, and I don't think the Republicans have taken that since 2008, maybe, and Joe Biden won that by around a 10% margin, that's in play. It seems like there's some real momentum happening here. It's what we say in Australia, we say, when the swing is on, it's on. Is the swing on?
I think it is. And the question is it too early? Keep in mind, we're still about 5 months away from the election, and we've got these debates in the intervening months. I really don't believe those Virginia numbers. Virginia is such a Democrat state, but we'll continue to watch that closely. That would be real news if Virginia is a swing state. But I did see data, and I've talked to members of Congress in both New Mexico and Arizona, and they say the numbers out there feel real. I think the most recent polling had Donald Trump up by 5 points in both of those swing states. To sort of further buttress that, this weekend he's in Arizona and New Mexico. Now, James, I think we're coming into wintertime, or actually you're in the middle of winter down there. It's the summertime in the desert Southwest. It's 115 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't do the math in my head, but I think that's in the low 40s. Maybe the mid-40s in Celsius. It's really, really, really hot. And for a candidate to go to New Mexico and go to Arizona in June, in the middle of summer, means that they think they've got some momentum behind them. They think they can sort of make hay while the sun shines, if you will, in those states. So clearly the Trump campaign has seen some things in the data in those states that they really like. So I agree with you. The momentum may swing back and forth a couple times between now and November, but right now it does feel like it's going Donald Trump's way.
Yeah, but then there's also other sort of things that are happening if you dive down deeper into the numbers. I mean, you look at the primaries in New Mexico and Iowa. Now, I know the nominations are all set, but at the same time, GOP turnout down 40%, Democrat turnout 50%. One of the things that I'm talking to people in America about, a lot of people are saying, well, I can't believe this is my choice. Is there a lack of enthusiasm for this race kind of in the broad middle that's making this really about the enthusiasts on, the extremes of both ends? And is that reflected in these primary numbers?
I think it's reflected in the primary numbers, and it may be what's driving some of the Trump momentum in the polls. Keep in mind, if the middle part of the country sort of says, you know what, I don't like either of these folks, and that sort of is reflected in the primary turnout, especially the numbers you mentioned, I think, were from New Mexico. It's a huge jump, 40% for the Democrats, of Republicans, almost 50 for the Democrats. Those are huge numbers over 4 years ago. If that's really the middle of the country sort of sitting this one out, and it's always hard to extrapolate from a primary to a general, but if that's what's happening, that may be why you're seeing Trump do better and better in these early polls in these swing states, because his base is more fired up for him than Joe Biden's base is fired up for him. Again, Joe Biden is never counting on his base to be excited about him. He's excited about his base being against Donald Trump. But right now, again, the polling data would suggest that that's just not happening.
Now, Mick, finally, one more little wild card in here. The quest to settle on a vice presidential pick for Donald Trump is ramping up, and according to the AP, he's started putting out vetting forms to potential candidates, sending out paperwork to a list of contenders, including North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Marco Rubio from Florida, J.D. Vance from Ohio, big name to watch there, Tim Scott, your friend from South Carolina, whom we've talked about, New York's Elise Stefanik, and Trump's 2016 rival turned cabinet member Ben Carson. Who are you liking among these picks, and where do you think he's going to wind up going, if I could be so bold?
See, we don't really have betting markets on this in the United States. I know they have them in the UK. If they have them in Australia, I'm giving you the winner right now. I'm telling you it's going to be Ben Carson.
Ben Carson.
Here's why. I think so, and here's why. There's a bunch of reasons. You could go down the list of all the weaknesses the other folks have, how they don't add anything to the campaign. Listen, they're great candidates. Tim Scott would be a great vice president. That's not my point. The one element I think that Ben Carson has that none of the other 6 people on the list have is that I don't think Ben Carson wants to be president. I don't think he wants to run for president. Keep in mind, if Donald Trump wins in November, he's automatically term limited under our Constitution, which means that the 2028 election effectively starts the next day after the 2024 election. And I don't think Donald Trump wants anybody in that White House running for president on day one of his second term. That's why I keep coming back again and again to Ben Carson. They know each other. They like each other. He's trustworthy. He's loyal. He's a brilliant guy. So, and again, all of them would make really good vice presidential candidates. That's not my point. My point is I think Ben Carson's got that one thing, that one element that the other ones can't bring to the table, and that's why my money right now is on Ben Carson.
Ben Carson, that's a great pick there. Mick Mulvaney, he's an impressive character. I think he's also a surgeon as well, a medical doctor. So we can put that in the bank. Maybe Ben Carson. Well, we'll see. Thank you so much for your time, Mick Mulvaney, for your insights as always. Now, Hunter Biden, there's a name we haven't talked about for a while. His federal firearms trial kicked off this week in Delaware, and it seems there's nowhere to hide for the president's son. Joining us now to discuss this is another great friend of the show, political journalist John Fudd. John, thank you so much for joining us again on the U.S. Report. First of all, John, because I'm not sure everybody here in Australia understands the nature of this case, what is it that Hunter Biden is being charged with, and how much trouble could he be in?
Well, Hunter Biden faces a large number of income tax charges that's separate from this gun charge. The gun charge specifically says that Hunter Biden bought a gun and he improperly filled out the form that is required by federal law stating, are you a drug addict? Do you have anything that affects your judgment and ability? Basically, your stability as someone who would own a deadly weapon. And he filled that out incorrectly because he was a raging crack addict at the time.
Yeah, and so some of the crazy things that we've seen in this case here, we had the amazing spectacle of part of his audiobook being played out, his own memoirs, where he talks about how from 2015 to 2019, he was smoking crack every 15 minutes. Now, this can't be great for his defense here, can it?
Well, what Hunter Biden's defense basically boils down to is, I was wild and crazy when I was wild and crazy, but I didn't actually do anything. And apparently my girlfriends or the wife of my dead brother prevented me from doing the worst. And now I'm sober, so, have mercy upon me and my soul. That's basically his defense, because he's basically admitted to the fact that he did lie on the form and that his behavior was, shall we say, outré.
Indeed, indeed. And at the same time, though, it looks like Hunter's own attorney, Abby Lowell, is going down a real sort of character assassination path here, tearing down prosecution witnesses. There was an amazing exchange where he was trying to stitch up a gun salesman, the guy who sold him the gun, trying to make him seem like some very dodgy character. And yet it came out, apparently, that this guy had about the highest character you could ever imagine. Tell us about this. Is this just all backfiring on Team Hunter?
Well, Abby Lowell is a fixture in Washington, and he is known for defending the undefendable. Congressman, let's put it this way. If he hadn't been busy with Hunter Biden, he would be defending Senator Menendez and his gold bars as part of the bribery trial that Senator Menendez is undergoing right now. So Abby Lowell's strategy has always been, scorched earth. The problem is Hunter Biden, in his own words, has convicted himself. There's certainly also the issue that after having a sweetheart deal that was swept aside by a judge who was suspicious of it and its origins in the Biden Justice Department, Hunter Biden is basically out there naked and alone. He's going to go probably to jail for a while, even as a first offender. And his father today said, "I will not pardon him." And I think that Hunter Biden is paying the price for being part of the Biden bribery family. And he's the weak link. The Republicans in Congress today subpoenaed not only Hunter, but also Hunter's uncle to provide records as to why so many millions of dollars flow through the Biden family accounts. The problem, of course, politically, for those who want to use this in November, is almost all of this will probably finally come out next year after the election.
I mean, this is just extraordinary here, John. We have the situation in American politics where both sides seem to be jailing each other and members of each other's family and aides and advisors. We saw Steve Bannon today ordered to report to jail on the Trump side. It seems like medieval Florence, but there's not just that. Of course, there's also the other thing I wanted to ask you about. This extraordinary report in the Wall Street Journal, which talked to more than 45 people about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Now, it seems like this piece has really sharpened the debate around Joe Biden's mental state. Give us your take on this piece, and how is it landing in Washington?
It's a bombshell, because for the first time, a credible news organization has gone out and actually talked to people who have sat with Biden, and not just his aides who basically wave all of these complaints away. Joe Biden has never taken a cognitive test as a president. When he had his last physical in February, there was no cognitive test. The doctor issued a one-page physical summary and refused to answer any questions. Well, that's not good enough anymore. The reports of Biden's weakness accelerated today with his performance at the D-Day ceremony, where he seemed confused and had to be led around by not only his wife, but French President Macron. Something is going on here. I think the American people, and this puts aside partisanship, deserve better. They deserve more information than what this White House cover-up is revealing. And what they need is a cognitive test of President Biden, monitored by independent medical researchers, and they need those results. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that. What we are going to get, though, is what Democratic donors demanded. The reason why we have a debate in late June, which is only in a few weeks, is because that's enough time before the Democratic convention that if Biden falls on his face or does a particularly bad performance, they can replace him. And I think the odds of Joe Biden being replaced have gone up now to 20 or 25%. The only problem, of course, is Kamala Harris, because they don't substitute Kamala Harris for Biden, because that's perhaps even a weaker candidate than Biden is.
John Fund, thank you so much for your time, as always. Now, after the break, don't go anywhere, because we're going to talk about the big Biden border crackdown that went bust and is going to lead quite possibly to a mass amnesty for illegal aliens. But first, before we go, let's take a moment to appreciate a bit of the wit and wisdom of Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, who had some sage words and possibly career advice for Joe Biden on what he could do if he was looking for some kind of gig to do besides play act as president. Have a look.
You know, the highest and best use of the president's time at this point would be selling catheters on late night TV. I mean, it really is sad.
Catheters. Ooh, ouch. Gotta say, things are really getting to the pointy end, aren't they? The Biden plan to give mass amnesty to 15 million is illegal, coming up after the break, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the program. I'm James Morrow, and on Thursday, the world marked one of the most important events to occur really probably in the last 1,000 years. The 80th anniversary of D-Day, the day nearly 160,000 Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy in Nazi-occupied France in what was the largest naval invasion in history. Their efforts turned the tide of World War II and led to the defeat of Nazism in Europe. Now, remaining vets, the youngest of them now in their 90s, gathered to mark the solemn occasion, as did world leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden. And on a day when the free Western democratic world was supposed to be saying to the globe, hey, we did it before, and you know what, we're still strong enough to do it again, well, I'm afraid Joe Biden came up short. Here's a few highlights or lowlights of his performance at D-Day. Where do we begin? Well, among other things, Biden showed up looking his totally not confused and losing itself. Then Biden appeared to fall asleep during the ceremony.
Les énormes obus de nos navires de guerre.
Let's go in for a closer look at that.
Les énormes obus de nos navires de guerre.
And then there was this. After shaking hands with French President Emmanuel Macron, Joe Biden appeared to, well, I don't know, let's just say he tried to sit down on a chair that was not there and call that the most charitable explanation.
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Honorable...
But, you know, you can see how sharp and on the ball he is behind closed doors. And then, moments after that, Jill, and sorry, that's Dr. Jill to you, Biden, escorted Biden out while Macron stayed back to greet veterans. My gosh, what a show. Look, I hate to bring this up on such an occasion because our D-Day vets are among the finest men to ever walk the earth. 30 years ago, I met a group of them at a bar at Heathrow Airport on their way to the 50-year commemorations, and that memory remains one of the most fascinating afternoons of my life. But the world right now is at a place not quite as, but inching closely towards the same sort of precipice we were at 85 years ago, before the start of the war that led to D-Day. And I'm sorry, but we don't need what we just saw there. We need leaders who project strength, not whatever this is. All right, well, enough of that. Let's talk about what's going on the southern border, a different invasion. Joining us now to talk about that is the New York Post Texas reporter Jenny Taylor, who has been doing some incredible reporting this week. Now, first of all, Jenny, welcome to the program. Earlier this week, President Joe Biden issued an executive order which officials said would shut down the U.S.-Mexico border if illegal crossings topped 2,500 per day for 7 consecutive days. But according to your reporting, this so-called crackdown, even if fully enforced, will still allow nearly 2 million asylum seekers into America every year. Why should anybody believe that they're serious, Jenny?
Right, exactly. This plan is full of loopholes, and some of the ones that we've found include migrants claiming that they have a fear of returning to their home country. It includes unaccompanied children. It includes people who are really sick. It also includes people whose countries won't take them back, who won't agree to any deportation flights. So that could include countries like Iran. It could also include countries like China. You know, we're seeing massive surges of Chinese nationals coming across the border, tens of thousands each year now. But unfortunately, China has not come to the table to make an agreement with the U.S., and that's something ICE has said and is concerned about. They've only had a couple of deportation flights, the last of which only had about 14 individuals on it. There's also a number of other factors, including people who dump their identification documents. We see a lot of that happening. Let's say you dump your ID and you're coming from a country that won't accept you. You're going to have to get ICE to advocate on your behalf to get a passport from your home country that is likely not cooperative. And by that time, who knows where you'll be? You can't be kept in custody that long. They have to keep moving people in and out. So this is full of holes that allow people to continue to stay in the country. That 2,500 number is just a show.
Yeah, it's just a show, and we know that, you know, in the first 100 days of the Biden administration, they issued, I think, 94 different orders undoing the Trump border controls, and presumably those other things would still go on, including this strange program where they just fly people directly into the country as well, correct?
Well, you know, another thing that happens is when you have custody issues, so you have massive surges of people going to one area of the southern border, such as San Diego right now. A lot of those migrants are having to be moved to other parts of the country where Border Patrol is less stressed and more resourced and can put them into custody there. But again, they're still going to have to constantly be making room for people, while on top of that, trying to carry out expedited removals to turn people back to Mexico that Mexico will actually accept. They don't accept all nationalities. And it's also something that the Biden administration has been pretty secretive about, is any backdoor deals that they've made with Mexico, they really haven't brought to the public eye. They haven't told us what Mexico has agreed to with this new plan in place. You know, it's something that they surely would have to have agreed to accept some number of migrants if they're doing what's called expedited removal. So that's another thing that Americans are being kept in the dark about with all of this.
And, you know, you also revealed this week, and I think this is fascinating because this is where this is all leading, of course, that since 2022, the Biden administration has granted amnesty without telling anybody to 350,000 migrants. Now, is the end goal here, because we've heard people talk about this, we heard New York Governor Kathy Hochul talk about an end run, is the end goal here to eventually parole and amnesty and create citizenship for the 9 or 10 or 15 million illegals who've come through during this administration?
What they're doing is they're cutting down on the backlog, the immigration court backlog that exists right now, that's more than 3 million cases large, making it seem like they're cutting back on that everything's getting better, even though we're still seeing large numbers of people cross the border, but also those who crossed previously are having their cases basically dismissed. And it's not on the immigration court that's handling it anymore. An immigration judge completely dismisses the case, terminates the case. These are for migrants that the federal government says are not national security threats, are not terroristic threats, and the like. And so they're basically undocumented in the United States, but they're also not in removal proceedings, which the government was previously pursuing against them, and is what typically happens when you cross the border. You're immediately put into removal proceedings. But that takes years to adjudicate. And so now you have people who are not being pursued for deportation, but they also can find ways of other immigration relief in the United States. They can seek some kind of status with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services if they so choose, if they have family here. There are other exceptions, but if they don't have a solid asylum case, as I've spoken with a number of immigration attorneys who say this, you know, this is a good relief for them, that if their case is dismissed, well, at least they're not denied and deported.
Thank you so much for your time, as always, Jenny Taylor. Now, don't go anywhere, because Alex Stein, you love him, is next. But before we go to a break, here's something I didn't know, and something that she says she didn't know. You know, Kamala Harris, the vice president who, for whatever reason, seems to giggle uncontrollably at the weirdest moments, and whose speeches are characterized by a weird mix of deep thoughts and incomprehensible word salad? Well, just coincidentally, who knows why, but apparently in the U.S. there is now a strain of marijuana. You know, the devil's lettuce, Satan's cabbage, that's been named after her. Check this out.
Are you aware that there is a strain of cannabis named after you, Kamala Kush? Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Seriously, for real.
I did not know that.
You didn't know it? They didn't even send you any?
No.
Oh, that's outrageous. You'd think you would get...
I've not heard of that.
You think you would get something.
Really? No idea. Well, I think we'll take that as a no comment, Madam Vice President. Me, I'm just waiting for my deli to name a sandwich in my honor. Quick break time, but don't go anywhere, because after the break, none other than the pimp on a blimp, Alex Stein, back on the show to tell us how his experience at a Queers for Palestine protest went down. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back to the program. Now, for a bit of fun, let's bring in a great friend of the show, primetime 99 comedian Alex Stein. Alex Stein, welcome back to the U.S. Report. I love your work for one reason. You go onto the front lines of the lunacy and the idiocy of the world that we live in so that I don't have to. And tell us about this here. You went and attended a Queers for Palestine protest in Dallas. I'm going to give our viewers a little taste, and then I want you to tell us about it. Let's have a look at this.
Are there pride parades in Palestine?
I will not talk to the media.
Gays are not allowed to be in Palestine. You know that.
I'm scaring everyone.
I'm not scaring anyone.
You
I'm
use
trying
your
to ask
body,
questions.
right?
I use my body. Yeah, you're using your body.
Hey,
throw your ass off the roof too. These people are delusional. They're protesting for Gaza. They don't even know the treatment of gay people in Gaza.
Alex, they seem nice.
Well, as you say, this is the Dallas Pride Parade. These were the protesters protesting the Pride Parade. It was insane, James.
So I mean, like, this is a thing, and actually, one thing I think we can take credit for here in Australia is that original Queers for Palestine sign that's been going around for years now, that actually started at the University of Sydney, right here in Australia. But the thing that strikes me here is that people are so on that side, so tunnel vision about their cause, they will not listen to anybody saying, hey, maybe you're on the wrong track here. Where does this delusion come from, Alex Stein?
I think it comes from brainwashing. I think it comes from indoctrination because let's be real. Those people, if we had given them a free ticket to Gaza or Palestine, none of them would go there, but they will all spend their afternoon yelling and shouting at other people at a pride event and, guilt tripping them and making them feel bad about their cause, when in reality, they're supporting a country that doesn't support them back. So it just shows you how hypocritical they are and how that they really don't have a very big world view, in my opinion, because if they're that narrow and they're literally protesting for a country that would throw them off a roof, they got to wake up and have some gratitude for how great it is here in America.
Yeah, but I mean, to have gratitude, you've got to feel happy. And I think these people don't feel very happy. But I think one of the things, too, and I'd love to get your take on this, because, yeah, there's a lot of leftist anti-Semitism and Marxism and glorification of third world nonsense all wrapped up in these protests. But it seems to me that an awful lot of these protesters, they seem like they've got no meaning to their life. They seem bored, and that this sort of idiocy is just something to do, a way to kind of fill the empty space where, other sorts of things that might have given them something to do intellectually and physically and mentally would have once been. What do you think of that?
You're exactly spot on. You're 100% correct, because these are the holdovers from the BLM riots. These are basically professional activists. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of them weren't getting paid to organize these events. So these are people that don't have anything better to do than go on the street and yell at other people and try to guilt people and try to virtue signal. So you're right. They're doing it more for the social aspect and not for the actual cause that they're quote unquote supporting. So you're spot on. I agree with what you said 100%.
Yeah, and Alex, too, I mean, it's funny, interesting, some of the backlash here. I sometimes wish that I, made, a lot of money so that I could withhold donations that I once gave. But, some of these alumnus are doing some amazing things. One Columbia University alum has apparently donated anonymously $260 million to one of Israel's largest universities to get back at Columbia for the way they've coddled these protesters. I reckon voting with a checkbook's a good thing here. What do you reckon?
Well, I agree, and I think that's why Donald Trump is breaking records with his fundraising right now, because they try to throw him in jail. They, totally convicted him on a sham deal. So it has a Streisand effect. Like when you tell us to ignore something, it kind of brings it attention, and that's what's happening. The opposite of their intended effect is what seems to be happening on these campuses, and they're losing support. And let's be real. I mean, I'm anti-war. I don't want people dying in wars, but they need to give up the hostages, and they need to try to, take some accountability for their side of this battle. But they don't want to have that conversation because it's too tough.
Hey, listen, you mentioned Donald Trump and his, potentially going to jail here. I mean, I just think it's just amazing we're in this situation where now both sides are trying to put each other's people in jail here. You got Hunter on one side, Trump on the other. What do you reckon, putting your sort of intellectual comedian's hat on here, what do you think it would be like for Trump and, Trump winding up in jail? Would he be like the kind of the top dog in prison there if he winds up going to Rikers Island or someplace like that?
1,000%. I mean, it'd be so dumb, though, if they put him in prison, because he would be the best candidate for house arrest if they really do need to arrest him. But yeah, Donald Trump would be running that jail. The warden would be shining Donald Trump's shoes. So anywhere he goes, he has an aura that surrounds him of power and leadership. And, you know, everybody, all these rappers and all the politicians that were on both sides and all the celebrities, they all loved Donald Trump before he got into the White House. Hillary Clinton was friends with him. And then as soon as he decided to run for president, they all turned their back on him. So everywhere Donald Trump goes, he's been successful and people love him. So like I said, he would be the king of the castle in any prison he goes to. And the sad thing is, I didn't think Donald Trump would get convicted. So now it's making me think that they are going to throw him in jail, because it's kind of like expect the unexpected in this situation.
It's pretty wild stuff. Alex Stein, thanks always for your analysis and your good times. You can check him out, Alex Stein, Primetime 99. Now, Only in America is next, but of course, Joe Biden's general debility has not gone unnoticed by Team Trump. A new ad's just dropped.
Look, I'm not a young guy. That's no secret.
Anyway, Only in America is next. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the program, and now it's time for a little segment we like to call Only in America. Well, this week, how much fun, a glorious case of life imitating art. Or is it the other way around? Let me introduce you first to the gang of lovable lowlifes in the underground TV comedy program It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The backstory is they own a bar, and in this episode, they decide to make a jihadi tape to threaten a property developer who has bought the bar out.
You not make restaurant here. Bad decision. We will crush your skull with our weapons.
We can't send this.
Nope. What are you guys talking about?
We're gonna get arrested. Yeah, or murdered. This is a little too extreme, Charlie.
Man, I feel sick.
Ooh, me too.
What, you think I don't feel sick? Okay, I'm sick. I feel very sick. But I directed out of this video. This stuff is gold.
You're not the one on TV dressed like a terrorist threatening Jews, Charlie.
Well, guess what? Video is just surfaced of protesters who occupied the president's office at Stanford University Wednesday. And I'm not saying they're terrorists, but I think they owe the Always Sunny people some royalties.
An autonomous group of Stanford students are occupying President Richard Saller's office in light of the ongoing genocide in Gaza carried out by the Israeli government and supported by allies like the American government and institutions like Stanford University. We have three demands. First, we demand that divestment is put on the agenda of the Board of Trustees meeting on June 12th and 13th. Second, we demand that Stanford disclose their 2022 financial year investments. Finally, we demand amnesty for all student protesters on Stanford's campus.
Or do we crush your skulls? Look at that. All that for $58,000 a year U.S. tuition. Money well spent. That's all the time we've got for this week. Hope it's always sunny where you are. See you next time. Bye-bye.